All right, so it looks like the first question comes from Timmy. What's your thoughts on social signals? Obviously, ones from real accounts that are topically relevant to support SEO to the money site. If so, you know any good vendors? I mean, yes, social signals are, I assume they're good. If they're from relevant audiences, real people that are engaging with the content, then I think those are great for SEO. It's the spam signals that we think are worthless. And it's been a long time since I've done any testing, but I can't imagine that 3 or 4 years ago when I did a lot of testing on social signals, just spam social signals that you would purchase from, Fiverr or any number of providers. And they really didn't move the needle at all for SEO. And again, that had to be 4 years ago now. And I can't imagine that all of a sudden social signals, like spammy signals, would be weighted any heavier than they were 4 years ago. So I can't imagine that they actually do anything. But real relevant signals from, active users, you got to think about what's happening when somebody is engaging in a content, liking, like chances are they have a history of being interested in that content, or even if it's not a long-term history, in recent history. And those are good signals, because trust me, Google has a profile of that person, right? Like, in other words, it has an idea of that user, that Google user, web user, whatever you want to call them, that shows their recent search history, the type of, what their affinities are, which means like what their long-term likes are, what they've recently been engaging with, and all that kind of stuff. So if somebody in that, a real user that has a real profile, real history, and they engage with your content, that's a really good signal, because it's highly weighted. Remember, Google has access to the same kind of data now that Facebook does, like behavioral interests and all that kind of stuff. So when a user engages on content, if Google can kind of weight that engagement signal. I don't have any like hard data to show that, but from the type of, traffic that I've been purchasing from Google audiences and such, it's just logical that would be weighted. I don't know, Marco, what do you think?
Activity, relevance, trust, and authority, right? Google, now the social, John Mueller said that Google doesn't pay attention to social signals.
Bullshit.
And that's partially, bullshit, but partially correct. There's no such thing as a social signal. You don't stand there with a beacon, right, with a flashlight, with that flare gun, signaling, and hey, look what I'm doing. The signal that you're sending is through those pixels. It's through those links. It's through the people coming through your analytics and search console, right? Because you see the activity there, whether they're relevant and whether they're coming from trusted, authoritative sources. Google is tracking everything. If you're setting goals in your analytics, then Google is further tracking, because now you can guide Google on what it is that you're expecting your visitors to do on your website. It's a lot of things that you can now set up so that you send additional signals to Google. So Google is tracking wherever that person is coming from. And we'll just use Facebook as an example. You're running Facebook ads, and maybe the conversion is on your website. Or maybe it's not on the ad, or maybe you just want to pixel that person. Maybe you're forming on some type of audience, affinity audiences also in YouTube. All of the different things that you can do, where the relevance is, as Bradley said, the people's history. What are their interests? Because if you're buying signals, these people are going to be going all over the place. They're going to be going. It's not a real history, like a real user, where you have an affinity when you're online. Whether you're a Facebook person, an Instagram person, a Twitter person, whatever you are, you have an affinity. Whether it's gaming, whether it's educational, whether you consume information, whatever it is. And so when that person comes through that link, believe me when I tell you that Google's going to know anything and everything there is to know about that person, unless you just don't go online, unless you don't have everything set up the way that we tell you to. So how do you get those people? Well, pay for them. Pay Google. Don't go paying a vendor for that. Pay Facebook, pay Google through YouTube, pay Twitter, pay Instagram, pay Pinterest. Because what you're going to do is, especially now through AI, is you're going to be able to fine tune your audience to that particular interest, to that relevance, so that the further you go in, the likelier is that this person is going to convert. Because now what you're doing is you're finding that person with that problem, with that pain, and you become a problem solver. You're solving the problem that person came online for. And maybe they didn't even know that they had a pain or a problem to solve, but you did such a good job of putting yourself in front of them that they decided, okay, I'm going to go purchase it because it's something that I need, that I realize that I need. And that signal, I mean, I don't care how many you get from any vendor, that signal that you're paying for, and it's pennies on the dollar. So $100 a month and it's gold. That's worth more than anything you can get. And let me finish why. Because that vendor, those people that vendor sends to you, they're not going to convert. The value is only going to be temporary, and maybe they'll pick up enough, or they'll send enough signals so that Google sends you real people. But why not? But why not start with real people in the first place?
Yeah, and let me unpause the screen for a minute because I pulled up. Okay. So while Marco was talking, this is just to demonstrate what I was talking about, guys. This is Google Analytics. This is for Semantic Mastery. And if you go into audience, now you have to have the advanced data collection, whatever, enabled in your analytics account. And switching over to GA4 now, Google Analytics 4, like all of that is so much more data that you get with the Google Analytics 4 as opposed to Universal Analytics. But anyway, what I'm trying to get at was what we were just talking about, guys, and this is proof of it here. So this is a month of traffic, or the traffic that has come to semanticmastery.com, our website, in the last month. If you go into audience and you look at interests, you can see these are the affinity audiences, right? Affinity means long-term, like an interest, a long-term interest. They have an affinity for, right? And so these are the affinity audiences that have visited our site in the last month. And then these are the in-market segments. In-market segments means within the last 30 days, they have been searching for content and engaging with, consuming, doing searches around keywords that are all relevant to, or that means they're likely in the market for whatever, a product or a service. And you can see business services, advertising and marketing services is our top in-market audience. Makes sense. There are some subsets of that or subcategories: SEO and SEM services, business services, business technology, web services, web design and development. It makes sense that our top 3 in-market audiences or visitors were in these. The most of our visitors, excuse me, I'm trying to explain this. The most of our visitors that have come, the top 3 in-market audiences that they're in are business services, right? Or subcategories of business in-market audience, business services, right? And that makes a lot of sense because of what our content's about. And then there's other categories as well. But this just goes to show you that it's very, Google has a hell of a lot more data than what they used to have from visitors. And you can see that in analytics, so that you can start to optimize your content for that. Or this can even give you some ideas as to which type of audiences to target if you're purchasing traffic directly from Google for YouTube, display, whatever. Somebody want to comment on that? Okay, thought I heard somebody. And also the other thing is, here's an example. I just showed this a couple days ago of some traffic just from YouTube. And this is what, Marco was saying. If you can buy really inexpensive, I know we were talking about social signals originally, but talking about generating traffic signals. Remember, activity, relevance, trust, and authority. And these are in market. Well, these different various audience types here, but these are YouTube ads that I'm running. And you can see that I just selected an IM stands for in market audience, home and garden services. This is for a landscaping and tree service company. And I'm running YouTube ads for them. And you can see that my cost per click, this isn't per view. The average cost per view is 9 cents. I used to talk about using YouTube for more for branding, for gaining views, but I'm getting a hell of a lot better at actually driving traffic 2 local clients now using YouTube ads, and look at the clicks. $1.66 per click, average cost per click, from a very relevant audience, right? In market, home and garden services. So those 83 clicks are highly weighted clicks because they're coming from audiences that are Google has determined are in market for home and garden services. So hopefully that makes sense. You know, I don't care about Facebook likes, shares, tweets, and all that kind of stuff if it's just spam. If it's from a relevant, in fact, it's nice to get them from a relevant, so social signals from a relevant audience. So somebody that is really, truly engaging with the content, that's great. But, you know, that's harder to spam or to spoof. It's almost, you know, it's very difficult to. But you can purchase relevant traffic signals directly from Google or Facebook or, you know, many of these different social platforms that also offer advertising services, right? And so the point is if you're buying relevant traffic signals, right, or engagement, traffic and engagement signals from a relevant audience, it's likely that they may end up liking, tweeting, sharing, whatever anyway, because they were a relevant audience to begin with. So my point, like what Marco was saying, I totally agree with. It's better to just go with this type of traffic, and you'll likely get natural, organic social signals from that. Okay. It's a great question, though. Moving on. Do I know of any good vendors? Not really. I think SEO Butler has some, at least they used to be called SEO Butler. I'm not sure if they still are, but I know that they had some tiered social signals that apparently, or from what I understand, worked pretty good, but I don't know that those are still relevant because, again, I haven't done any significant testing on just social signals in several years. Great question, though.